Perfect. So welcome everyone. We are so excited to see all of you here. Looking at the numbers, we have almost every one of our chaperones on this call. And that is so exciting. I know it's going to be a great conference already, given the commitment of all of you to be here. My name is Shannon Harillo, and I am the Division Director for the Division of Youth and 4-H. And today is our chaperone training. I am sure you are going to have a lot of questions that will arise. You can put them in the chat pod and we'll go through them at the end. Or at the end, feel free to raise your hand or take yourself off mute and we'll answer all your questions. So today we're really focused on the chaperone roles and expectations. And again, we really thank you for being here and for helping us make this the best experience for our 4-Hers coming to our National 4-H Conference this year. This session is being recorded, and the recording and the slides will be emailed to registered chaperones as soon as they are available. So if you miss anything or if you have to leave for a moment, all the information will be captured for you to attend to later. So just an opening slide telling all of you something you already know. 4-H is the youth outreach program of the United States Department of Agriculture and is implemented by the Cooperative Extension System and all of you through over 110 different land-grant universities and colleges across the United States and our territories. We know we have the best 4-H positive youth development experts joining us, and that is another reason why we're just so excited to have all of you with us. Next slide. A little history about National 4-H Conference. It was originally called the National 4-H Club Camp, where delegates slept in tents on the grounds of the National Mall in front of USDA headquarters. This year, and the conference are in 1927, so this year we have approximately 300 young people from across the United States and our territories, as well as from overseas, who will travel to Washington, D.C. to share their voice with federal agencies and congressional committees on a wide range of topics that are important to them and also important to our federal partners. This year, if you're new to conference or you've been before but might be expecting workshops, we decided this year, based on youth feedback, that we would not have workshops, and we would introduce the Youth Career Fair and panel discussions. And this is the inaugural year for having this offered as part of National 4-H Conference. So this year's Career Fair will be held in partnership with the Smithsonian Institution, and it will provide delegates and collegiate facilitators access to a diverse range of opportunities, including volunteer, internship, fellowship, and careers across the federal government. So we definitely will be excited to hear your feedback and your delegates' feedback about this new addition to our historic conference. Of course, those roundtables still are the cornerstone and the main point and piece of conference. So next, I'm going to turn it over to Annie Cesarini, the National Program Leader, who is leading this year's National 4-H Conference.
Thanks, Shannon. So for those of you that are new to National 4-H Conference or returning chaperones, let's go over, so how does conference work? So federal partners play a key role by presenting an issue of importance on which they would like to receive youth perspective. Federal partners provide young people an opportunity to see firsthand how they can influence government decision-making. And this year, they will also introduce them to the various careers found in federal service through our Youth Career Fair. The land-grant university system. So all 112 land-grant colleges and universities are invited to select and send 4-H participants aged 15 to 19, along with adult chaperones, to National 4-H Conference. Each is encouraged to partner within their state to select a diverse delegation based on age, background, geographic distribution, and/or experience with the 4-H program. And youth participants, the youth experience. Youth pick a topic of interest, they research the issue, and they work with their peers during conference to develop a 45-minute youth perspective briefing that they will present formally to the federal partner with their recommendations. Youth can also apply to serve in various leadership roles at National 4-H Conference. More than 45 different federal partners will participate in this year's conference by either seeking youth voice on an important issue, hosting a community service project, or attending the career fair. And you see all those federal logos and emblems on your screen. Each is contributing to NIFA's goals of creating an authentic civic engagement experience for young adults at the federal level and fostering positive youth development that provides our nation's youth with the 21st century skills needed to be successful, healthy, and productive members of society. So we're very grateful to our federal partners. The three objectives for this year's conference include: 1, opportunity for all. The objective of the program is to provide for the development of leadership, recreation, and citizenship to all 4-Hers. This year, financial assistance was offered to 4-H youth and adult chaperones who otherwise would not be able to attend conference. Partnerships. Partnerships between 1862, 1890, and 1994 institutions in the same state have been encouraged to select a diverse state delegation, and we've engaged more than 45 federal agencies and offices before, during, and after conference activities. That's more federal partners than ever before. And third, workforce development. Last year, the Secretary of Agriculture came to conference, and he spoke about the diverse agricultural career opportunities available at USDA and throughout America's food system. This sparked an internal conversation about adding a career fair component to the conference. We're excited to announce that youth delegates will be participating in the first ever youth career fair offered by USDA in partnership with the Smithsonian. It's ambitious in scope, with 14 USDA agencies and offices, as well as 25 other federal partners. Youth will hear from 25 federal employees with full jobs, spanning from healthcare administrators to scientific illustrators to currency enforcement police. Youth can bring their resume to receive resume writing advice, interviewing tips, how to navigate USA jobs, and to learn about the student employment programs offered throughout the federal government. A key component of National 4-H Conference is amplifying youth voice. One way we do this is through a peer leadership model. Youth and adults can serve in various leadership positions by either applying for the youth leadership team or the collegiate facilitator team. The youth leadership team this year is made up of 6 high school students and 2 adult advisors. They were assembled to provide youth voice in conference planning and implementation and are currently working hard to ensure that all youth delegates have an amazing experience at conference. The collegiate facilitator team is made up of 20 college students and 2 adult advisors. This group is assembled to host and facilitate youth roundtable groups. Each roundtable group is given a challenge question submitted by a federal agency. The roundtable groups prepare a 45-minute youth perspective briefing that is presented to the federal agency. In the coming weeks, youth delegates will receive the information about which federal challenge question they have been assigned to by their collegiate facilitator. So be on the lookout for that. So youth delegates represent 43 1862 land-grant universities, 12 1890 land-grant universities, and 2 1994 land-grant universities, totaling more than half the land-grant university system at this year's conference. In addition, we have 30 military-connected youth and teens, along with active duty service members, National Guard and Reserve members, and Defense Department civilians traveling from installations across the country and around the globe to participate in National 4-H Conference. And we're really excited about this Department of Defense partnership. Conference attendees in total include 293 youth delegates and 118 adult chaperones, and that's all of you, from 43 states, 2 U.S. territories, and installations at home and abroad. Next, I'll turn it back over to Shannon.
All right, so I have the great pleasure of talking about all the different policies as well as roles and expectations and where you can find this information. So first of all, the delegate handbook was prepared to really help the delegates, the youth delegates, and prepare them and provide them information for their experience at National 4-H Conference. And the handbook is full of useful information and helpful tips such as general information about Washington, D.C., dress attire guide. We'll talk more about that, emergency procedures, and much, much more. So we do ask that you work with your delegates to bring a paper or a digital copy, maybe on the phones or whatever is convenient. But if all young people have access to their delegate handbook, that would be very helpful as we go through conference. We also have put together what we hope is a helpful guide for all of you, which goes over responsibilities, roles, and expectations, and various policies. And again, it was designed for the chaperones. So as part of the registration process, as you probably know, youth delegates confirmed that they read the delegate handbook, and chaperones confirmed that they read both the delegate handbook and this guide for all of those staff and volunteers that might be attending National 4-H Conference with their young people. However, I did want to spend a little bit of time going through some key pieces regarding the 1862, 1890, and 1994 staff and volunteer guidebook. So specific to pieces of information in there. So we can go to the attendee slide. So we did receive some questions in the registration process, but just to reiterate that all youth delegates should be 15 to 19 years of age during the dates in which National 4-H Conference is held. And you can see our logo there on the right. That was developed by the youth leadership team. So I just wanted to highlight that that is this year's logo and slogan for fun. In addition, as we think about the chaperones, I just wanted to highlight that all of the chaperones must be land-grant university staff and or volunteers. And all of the chaperones traveling to attend National 4-H Conference and work with young people must successfully complete a criminal background check by their institution and or their employer. Just so that you know, USDA does require all of us that will be attending. We have over 20 USDA NIFA staff in particular, does require a fingerprint-based criminal background check of state and national criminal records and sexual offender registries for all its employees. So you know that we are following along with similar policies that may be established at your land-grant university. And it is the responsibility of the state coordinator to verify that their staff or volunteers, if there are volunteers attending as the chaperone, have successfully completed a background check, a criminal background check as required by their institution. And that is just there to keep everyone safe. So let's turn to the land-grant responsibility for youth protection. So NIFA is putting on the event, USDA NIFA is putting on the event, and it's hosted in particular and planned by the Division of Youth and 4-H staff that are here on this call with you today, as well as others. But there are specific responsibilities for youth protection that remain the responsibility of the land-grant university. A few of them, again, all of this is highlighted in that guidebook, include conduct and discipline. So chaperones and the land-grant university specifically will be responsible enforcing the code of conduct and being involved in any disciplinary action. And if something does occur, the land-grant university staff, chaperone, in consultation with USDA NIFA and potentially the logistics coordinator, if that's applicable to the situation, do reserve the right to dismiss or remove any National 4-H Conference participant that does not adhere to the rules and procedures as outlined in the guidebook. Any of the following consequences I wanted to highlight may be used depending on the severity of the situation. That may involve a participant receiving a verbal warning, remaining at the event but not coming back to a future event. If it's significant enough, potentially to leave the event. And if a youth is asked to leave, of course, the chaperone must notify the parent or guardian as well as arrange for their escort home. And that may be in conjunction with your state coordinator back in your home state. If there is something that does compromise the safety or is unlawful, of course, participants may be, we may alert local law enforcement. So those are some of the things that can happen. But since the nature of the offense, right, whatever occurs may be very minor, may be serious, we will handle that with the appropriate consequence. And again, our approach to this from the Division of Youth and 4-H team in working with all of you would be that all corrective actions taken are intended to serve as a restorative purpose rather than a punitive measure. And we would, of course, then rely on all of you to have in place at your land grants, which I'm sure you all do, a disciplinary procedure in place that includes how you should handle these situations when they're back in your own state. And so we would not get involved in those, but we might make some recommendations or advise based on what is occurring at conference, how to ensure that we're protecting the safety and the youth development experience for others. Another area that is the responsibility of the land grant is for medical care and insurance. So I do want to highlight that USDA NIFA will not collect or have any access to medical care insurance information. So chaperones should have access to this information as needed and have it on them in case there is an incident that needs to be addressed to ensure that the proper medical care is provided to those who need it. In an emergency if an emergency situation does arise, again, we would look to the chaperone to be responsible for seeking a medical assistance for their delegation. So all of you should, know, and I'm sure you all do, should know and follow the established procedures for you reporting these incidents with your state and working through the insurance claim process, etc., for your institution or for your organization. I do want to let you know that the conference logistics coordinator, who is S. Stewart's and Associates, and they will be on site. You also have their contact information in the back of the guidebook, as well as mine and everyone else that I'm going to talk about here today, so you can get in contact with us. Has provided and taken out accident insurance from American Income Life Insurance Company for participants who are attending conference. So there is that insurance available, and you can work directly with S. Stewart's and Associates on all that paperwork and processing. But again, NIFA won't be involved in this. We don't have access to the medical information or any other information that would enable care to be provided. So we would look for you as the chaperone. NIFA has outlined the preferred ratio of supervision as 5 youth to 1 adult at events and activities related to conference, and defined an adult as someone 21 years or older for the purposes of National 4-H Conference. And when transportation is not provided by the conference logistics coordinator, chaperones should follow their own LGU transportation policies. So there are, in the delegate handbook, is a conference at the glance, and that schedule provides the 2 places in the program where transportation would be the responsibility of the, of the delegation to get home. All right, last page, or last slide for me. No, sorry, I have 2 more, and I do see the question in the chat, and we will come back to that at the end of the call. So in case of a major catastrophe, all participants will meet at a designated point. And these gathering points should be identified by the chaperones for their respective delegation. Each delegation then would take roll at whatever place they agree to meet up with and ensure the entire group is there, and then be escorted to Airport Plaza 1, located on S. Clark Street, across from the hotel. Again, that information is in the delegate handbook. So once we're all at the spot together, then S. Stewart's and Associates will direct us on what to do next. Right. If an emergency situation does come up, the chaperones would be responsible for informing parents or legal guardians about any emergency situation that would arise. We also provide some additional information about missing persons and how to handle those situations. And in terms of reporting child abuse, please know your established institution procedures for reporting suspected child abuse, whether you're a mandated reporter or whether it's encouraged. So every land grant should have, based on their state policies, processes for doing that. I will let you know that USDA NIFA are not mandated reporters. In terms of major catastrophe, we've kind of talked about where you will go, and that location is here on the slide as well. And then finally, for me, civil rights. So USDA is committed to creating an inclusive environment where individuals with disabilities can quickly and easily request and obtain reasonable accommodations. So if you or a young person in your delegation needs a reasonable accommodation to participate in the event, this request would go to Annie Cesarini by March 30th. If interpretation or translation services are needed, the individual, of course, you can always contact Annie if you have questions, but she will direct you to this website, or you can contact our equal opportunity specialist, Lois, by March 30th. I do want to highlight that there were some reasonable accommodations as well as language access requests submitted via the registration process, and we are working to address those. So it's very possible in addressing those that you and the parent or guardian of the young person attending conference will receive an email from either our logistics coordinators, Susan Stewart's and Associates, who are handling things around meals and lodging and transportation, etc., or if they're related to language access or other reasonable accommodations requests, our EEO staff will be reaching directly out to resolve those and figure out how we can assist in ensuring that all young people can fully participate in National 4-H Conference. Reporting discrimination can be done using Form AD 3027. There's a link there. And lastly, reporting harassment. So if there is anyone that is subject to harassing conduct, we do encourage that that be reported. We go through a multi-pronged step. So if it's this person, it should be reported here. If it's this person, it should be reported there. So please read through that so that you're aware of where to report. But it's kind of at the lowest level. So we encourage people to address it with the individual if they can safely. If not, then it can be escalated up into the chaperone. If it is the chaperone, it would go to the state coordinator. If it is a USDA employee, the conference logistics coordinator, or any hotel staff or other persons involved in National 4-H Conference events and activities, you can report that to me. So we go through all of that in the guidebook as well. I also wanted to highlight, before I turn it back over to one of my colleagues to talk about the schedule and the daily shown expectations, I wanted to let everybody know that our Director of Equal Opportunity and Civil Rights at NIFA will be in attendance during the entire conference. So if any of these things come up or anything else that you need advice or guidance on, I can always put you in contact with her or can work with you and her to address the issue. So just want to let you know that Jessica Creighton will be at the event the entire time to ensure that we can support all the needs and issues that may arise. All right, I'm going to turn it over to Andrea.
Hi, I'm Andrea Roy-Kara. I'm a program specialist in the Division of Youth and 4-H, and I'm going to cover the 2023 conference schedule and the daily expectations from their chaperones for each activity and event. You can find the schedule at a glance in your delegate handbook. And then when you arrive to conference at registration, you'll also receive a program and a link to a digital schedule. So the conference will take place Friday, April 14th through Wednesday, April 19th. And we encouraged delegations to think about arriving a day early or stay a day late if they want to spend additional time exploring DC. All conference activities and transportation to offsite events will take place at the Hyatt Regency Crystal City Hotel in Arlington, Virginia. And with the expansion of our offerings and an increased interest There has come the need to adjust conference logistics, including some potential changes to our hotel arrangements and transportation. Our event planners have worked hard on a resolution to these issues that minimizes the impact among attendees. And so to accommodate these registrants, some delegations have been asked to relocate to neighboring hotels. So we have 38 delegations staying at the Hyatt, 15 delegations staying at the Courtyard by Marriott, and 11 delegations at the Residence Inn by Marriott. Both the Courtyard and the Residence Inn are in walking distance to the Hyatt. One is right in front, can be seen from the lobby, and the other is right behind the Hyatt. So if your delegate was moved to either the Courtyard or Residence Inn, your point of contact and all your chaperones should have received an email yesterday with those details. Each of those hotels has a free shuttle that shuttles to and from the Ronald Reagan National Airport. The details for the Hyatt shuttle is included in the delegate handbook, and we are working to update that handbook to include the information for the 2 new hotels as well. Also on this slide, I've included the parking rates for each of those hotels if you are traveling in a vehicle to conference. And the closest metro station to these hotels is listed here as the Crystal City Metro Station. So every day, I'll go through each day individually, but these are some of the events that will happen every single day. Starting with dinner on Friday through breakfast on Wednesday, all meals and snacks will be provided with one exception, and that would be Monday night dinner, which is going to be on your own with your delegation. Time is built into the schedule for delegation meetups each day, and that time is time devoted to touch base, debrief, and prepare for any upcoming events with your delegates. And you as a chaperone are responsible for identifying a location for the meetup and for facilitating that discussion. Breaks are also built into the schedule, and we will be assigning some chaperones to monitor some of the break areas that will be available for the delegates to use, so that there is adult supervision provided there. Those assignments will be given to you at a later date. Also, each day, the youth will receive a short evaluation survey just to touch base on how they thought the different events went. So we just ask as chaperones that you encourage your delegates to complete those surveys. And those surveys really help shape decisions for our future conferences. So we really appreciate that. And then every night you'll see on that schedule as a glance, we ask that delegates be in their hotel rooms with lights out by 11 p.m. So please follow your own organization's policies for ensuring the safety of your delegates. And just want to also point out that there are a lot of events planned for conference and that we do expect delegates to attend all of those activities and events. So I'll start with Friday. On Friday, April 14th, registration for all delegations will be at the Hyatt Independence Foyer. This is where you're going to pick up your conference materials. And if you're staying at the Hyatt, you will also receive your room keys at that time. If your delegation is not staying at the Hyatt, you'll pick up your room keys at your respective hotel's front desk. If you are planning to arrive before check-in and would like to leave your bags to go explore, there will be a bag check available for you, and you can ask for that when you arrive. So the conference is going to kick off with an opening assembly and dinner. And during the dinner, you will not be seated with your delegations. So just want to point that out. Instead, the delegates will be assigned randomly to dinner tables so they can meet and make friends with 4-Hers from across the country. This was something we received in the feedback from last year, that youth were looking for more opportunities to meet new people. Additionally, one delegate from each state and territory is going to be identified to carry a flag in a procession onto the stage. Those individuals will be receiving an email to let them know they've been chosen to do that. After the opening assembly and dinner, the youth leadership team is going to facilitate a welcome activity. We ask that each delegation brings pin from their state or territory to trade with other delegates. You can see some examples of these pins from last year in the photo here on the slide. And just also want to point out that there will be some time to change clothes between the opening assembly and welcome activity if that is of interest to your delegates. All right, moving on to Saturday. Saturday is when the roundtable sessions begin, and they take up the majority of the day. Chaperones will be assigned to supervise roundtable groups. And just to be clear, you may or may not be in the same room as your delegates. We ask that all chaperones attend the first roundtable session. And then during that first session, you can coordinate with the other chaperones to take shifts as long as there is a 5-to-1 ratio maintained. And I just want to point out that the collegiate facilitator and NIFA liaison, who may be in the room as well, they should not be factored into the 5-to-1 ratio. And then in the evening on Saturday, you'll load buses with your delegation. So the entire delegation and chaperones will all be on the same bus together. And select chaperones will be assigned to be bus captains. These buses will take you on a night monument tour, and these tours are outdoors. So we want to just let everyone know that so that you can dress accordingly for them. Here's a few more expectations from the roundtable sessions, because that does make up a very large portion of Saturday and Sunday's activities. Each roundtable will have a dedicated space for all 8 roundtable sessions and for their youth perspective briefing rehearsal. Each roundtable group will have 1 collegiate facilitator, 13 to 15 youth delegates, about 4 to 6 assigned chaperones, and 1 NIFA liaison. The collegiate facilitator is the leader for this room, and they will facilitate all the activities and all of the discussions. The chaperones are strictly there to provide supervision, and they do not need to lead any activities. And really, they should only interact when it's completely necessary. And again, it's that 5-to-1 ratio that needs to be observed at all times. The NIFA liaison will serve as the USDA NIFA point of contact for the group, and they will help connect with the federal agency as needed. Chaperones may bring a laptop or reading material, something to work on in the room. You're welcome to multitask as long as you are providing that supervision. All right, so moving on to Sunday. Sunday, the roundtable sessions will continue. The chaperones will stay with the same group all through Saturday and Sunday, and even into Monday. We'll go into that as well. In addition to the roundtable sessions on Sunday, there will be 2 youth perspective briefing rehearsal sessions. So half of the groups will rehearse in the first session, and the other half will rehearse in the second session, the time slot. Each of the roundtable rooms will be equipped with a screen and a projector for this purpose. And then chaperones, collegiate facilitators, and even delegates are invited to come to those rehearsals and observe them. And we ask that they fill out a digital feedback form with constructive feedback for the group. After the rehearsals, the roundtable groups will have a final roundtable session so that they can incorporate any of that feedback and constructive criticism to make any changes before they go to their actual briefing. And then the evening will end with a performance by the Kiowa Dance Theater. The Kiowa Dance Theater has celebrated over 25 years of portraying outstanding performances in traditional West African dance and drumming. Kiowa is a 2001 and 2004 recipient of the DC Dance Award for Outstanding Group Performance. Then I just want to point out that this evening performance, as well as some of the other evening activities that happen throughout conference, the chaperones are expected to supervise their own delegations during that time. So you can work out with, if you have multiple chaperones for your group going, it is up to you to make sure that your delegates are supervised at those events. On Monday is the big day for our delegates. It's the culmination of all the work they've done in their roundtable sessions. The roundtable groups will travel by bus to their federal agency. They're going to present their 45-minute youth perspective briefing to the federal agency, and the chaperones will travel with their assigned roundtable group rather than traveling with their delegation. Each federal agency requires different security measures. And so your NIFA liaison for your roundtable group will make sure to communicate those details with you in advance. The presentation, after the presentation, some federal agencies staff might offer a tour of their building or stick around to chat or ask more questions. And then once that experience is over, the same buses that you took to get to the federal agencies will then transport everyone back to the USDA Witten building on the National Mall. Once you're back at the National Mall, this is where you'll regroup with your delegation. So it'll be roundtable groups in the morning, and then once you get back to the National Mall, you can meet up with your delegation. And from that point forward, you will be supervising your delegation rather than supervising your roundtable group. Timber Pizza Company will provide lunch, pizza, drink, and cookie, and you will be getting a bracelet with your registration that you will trade in for your meal. So please remember to bring those bracelets on Monday. And after lunch, we'll have everyone start moving into the Ripley Center for the Youth Career Fair. Just want to point out that no food or drink is allowed in the Ripley Center. We will be eating the pizza outdoors at the USDA building. You can enter the Ripley Center, which is just very close to the USDA building, through this kiosk that's pictured here. And like Annie mentioned earlier, there will be a resume writing workshop at the career fair. So I just want to point out that you can encourage your delegates to bring their resume to the career fair, and that way they can get pointers on tips and tricks to make that their best. I'll have a little bit more information on the career fair in the next slides, but after the career fair, delegations will be released to explore the National Mall in DC and eat dinner at a restaurant of their own choice. So dinner's on your own on Monday night. We do suggest getting dinner reservations, especially for larger groups. And we also encourage delegations to make plans together with other delegations as they'd like. After dinner and exploring, delegations will find their own transportation back to the hotel. We encourage you to explore the metro, or you can also use ride shares like Uber or Lyft. You'll want to be back at the hotel before 8:30. That is when the evening entertainment will begin. And Shannon McCain, who's a motivational speaker who has connections to Missouri 4-H, will be speaking. So here is a map of the Youth Career Fair space. So this is in the Ripley Center. You'll see that we have several rooms devoted to the career fair where agencies will have tables set up and staff members present to engage with the. There's also a room for the panel discussions. The agencies are going to be housed in 4 different rooms that have themes. We have the thinkers, which produce and introduce ideas. We have builders who convert the idea into reality. We have improvers who make the reality of the idea better, and producers who do the work to deliver products, goods, services to consumers. So we plan to label the rooms and provide directional signage and an agenda to help you and the delegates navigate to the spaces as they'd like. Here are some photos from the Ripley Center just to give you an idea of the concourse area. There's also the lecture hall where the cool job panels will take place. The panels include various individuals who we think have very cool jobs, and those will be themed as well. The panels include foreign service jobs, Department of Defense jobs, public health jobs, education jobs, government monitoring and funds management jobs. And so we expect that delegates will choose which of those panels are most interesting to them and attend those panels as they're happening, that they do not need to attend all of them necessarily. Right, and on Tuesday, I'll start off by saying that we ask that the delegates wear their conference t-shirt on this day. We will load buses with delegation, so the chaperones and all of their delegates will be together on a bus. We'll go back to USDA headquarters and have a 4-H flag raising ceremony. And after that ceremony, you will be able to pick up your lunch for that day, and you'll head back to that same bus, which will transport you to your community service location. Once at that community service site, there will be a designated area to eat lunch. We'll have 2 buses going to every single site so that when the community service opportunity is finished, you'll have the opportunity to stay for a while and maybe explore. They might offer tours depending where you're at. But if you have other plans and need to leave early, there'll be 1 bus to leave early and another one to stay to experience those additional activities. The buses will drop either at the hotel or the National Mall to explore. And if you do choose to go back to the National Mall, you will be responsible for finding your own transportation back to the hotel later that day. And on Tuesday, you'll need to be back to the hotel and dressed for dinner by 6 o'clock is when that starts. And there will be dinner and a closing assembly. For this dinner, the delegates are going to be seated with their roundtable groups. And after the dinner, there's going to be a celebration and dance. There's going to be time again between these 2 events if the delegates wish to if they wish to change their clothes, there will be some time in between where they can do that. So just a little bit more about those community service opportunities. During your registration, you should have selected your choices for this, and you will be getting more information as follows. We have 5 different service options, and you can see some of the unique experiences that will be happening there. Partnering with Forest Service, USDA, and the National Park Service as well. Some really neat opportunities. Again, we ask that the delegates wear their t-shirts for this. There will be lots of photo opportunities. We also encourage you to bring sunscreen, sun protection like a hat, bring a water bottle with you. And for those who are doing the National Mall service, if you could bring gardening gloves, that would be helpful as well. Some of these community service opportunities do require permission forms signed by a parent or guardian for anyone under the age of 18. And so those will be provided to you before conference, so you can get those signatures and have those at the time that you arrive at the community service opportunity. We've been told by our logistics coordinator that there is a little confusion that maybe some delegations are not able to come to community service because that was the only time they were able to meet on Capitol Hill. And so if you are doing Capitol Hill visits during this time because there was no other option to meet with your representatives, then if you could please let us know that so that we have the proper amount of buses for the amount of people that we have. Okay, and Wednesday is the last scheduled day of conference. There will be a congressional breakfast that is hosted by the National 4-H Council. And due to limited space for this event, only delegations who have members from Congress present at the breakfast will be able to attend. And so more details will be shared about that at a later date. The hotel checkout times are listed here on this slide. And wanted to also let you know that there will be a final evaluation survey sent to youth delegates. So if you as a chaperone could encourage them to complete those surveys, it really does help us make improvements to our conference and make it attractive to youth to attend next year. And I also want to point out that at this time that Capitol Hill visits are optional. Each delegation is responsible for scheduling their own appointments with their legislators. You can find more information about that in the delegate handbook, including available dates and times that will not conflict with the events scheduled for conference. And I will turn it back over to Shannon to talk about attire guidelines.
Great. So we've received several questions around attire guidelines. And so we wanted to highlight that USDA NIFA will not regulate or enforce a youth or chaperone's attire, and there are no requirements for attire. The general information that we provided in the delegate handbook is to assist participants in understanding that some events are more casual or less casual than others. For example, if they've never been to the flag raising or you've never been to the flag raising, you might question, is that a casual or is that business professional and everyone will be wearing suits? So we provided these general guidelines to help delegations know what kinds of things are casual, and business professional. And we recognize there is a wide range of how these type of guidelines are interpreted, and we will leave it up to all of you and defer to all of you to work through what appropriate dress code requirements might be, because I understand and we're well aware that some institutions do have specific attire requirements. So that's why we're leaving it up to all of you. NIFA won't enforce it. We don't have any preferences. We want young people to come as they are and all of you to be working with them within the parameters of your institution or specific policies that might be governing the specific agency, etc. So I wanted to highlight that because we have received several questions. Moving on to social media. During conference, use your social media platforms to convey that National 4-H Conference is the event that you've been waiting for. We've been waiting almost a year or over a year now since last year's National 4-H Conference. We're all very excited. It's close, and so spread your energy and excitement using this hashtag that we've provided here, and follow and tag USDA's Facebook site and also on Twitter and Instagram as well as LinkedIn. So all those handles and tags are there. I do want to let you know that youth who have purple dots on their name tag should not be photographed because we did not receive permissions for them to be photographed from them or their parent or guardian. So that would be readily apparent to everyone who has a purple name tag on their purple dot on their name tag that they should not be photographed. So behind is fine, but not identified. Okay, and then turning it over to Annie before we move on to questions.
So in terms of next steps, the delegate handbook is currently being updated with new information as we have it. So please look for that on our website. The new delegate handbook, or the updated version, will have a March date on the name of the file. So that will help you be able to identify it. You should see that there in the coming days, and definitely by next week. Next is book your travel. If you have questions about travel arrangements, please contact our logistics coordinator, and their contact information, and it is in the guidebook and handbook. And then help delegates get prepared. So delegates will be notified about the roundtable group that they have been assigned to by their collegiate facilitator also within the next week. So that those communications will happen soon. You will also be notified about which roundtable you've been assigned to as a chaperone. So be on the lookout for that within the next week. And as for reminders, so medical information and emergency contact information will not be turned in. So in the past, if you've come to conference and you've handed in your medical form, we will not be collecting this year at registration. So please do not hand over those forms to any of the USDA staff or our logistics partner. Delegations should bring, so for your youth delegates, they should bring a pin for the pin exchange, an event that's been planned by our youth leadership team after the opening assembly. So there will be a pin exchange. We have a room that's reserved on the roof of the Hyatt. It's called the Chesapeake Room, and that is our room for young people to gather to socialize. So if young people or your delegates would like to bring games to leave in that room, we would encourage them to bring that as well. So board games, cards, puzzles. We can't guarantee that that game will go home with them, but they are encouraged to bring it if they'd like to. And permission forms, so signed by the parent or guardian for community service. So if you're signed up for a community service event with the National Park Service, you will need an additional form. If you're signed up for the U.S. Arboretum activity or the service activity for planting trees, you will not need to provide additional permission. Delegates should bring a photo ID. They'll need this to travel on a plane, but they will also need this if they're not traveling on a plane to enter the federal agencies. Many of the federal agencies that we've partnered with, there's 20 in total. They all have different entry requirements, and the majority of them require a photo ID for both youth and adult chaperones to enter. Snacks. If you have a young person in your delegation or you yourself who need to eat in between meals and enjoy a good snack, we encourage you to bring snacks with you, or if there is a food allergy, please bring snacks. And the resume. So please bring a resume for the career fair for career writing tips. And chaperones should bring. So the medical forms and releases for you to keep for your delegates, whether you have those on your phone, your laptop, or paper copies, you should have those readily available in case you might need them. Also, the emergency contact information for the guardian or parent of the young people, and water bottle. So we will be giving to the youth delegates a water bottle at registration, but a water bottle will not be provided to chaperones. So please bring one so you can use the water fountains at the hotel and elsewhere. And now we'll open up to questions. So feel free to unmute yourself to ask a question or to write it in the chat pod, and we'll do our best.
So Annie, there are a number of questions in the chat pod. Would you like me to read them? And then we can read the answer if it's there, and then we'll accept more. So Pat did write, will the insurance that S. Stewart's and Associates has taken out cover them while they're traveling to National 4-H Conference or just while they are on site? Susan has written that there will be insurance provided by S. Stewart's and Associates for the days of conference, as well as one day before and one day after, and any additional days will be the responsibility of the state. All right. For dinner reservations, there's a couple of questions around that. Annie, do you think that's something we can add in the delegate handbook updates specifically around, so they're there and they can reflect on those, so we can go do some research and offer those up? So we will do that for all the inquiries there. Are there other options than outdoors for lunch in case of inclement weather?
So the lunch outside USDA headquarters will be under 10. So in case of inclement weather, we will be covered.
Great. Another question, who do we let know if we have legislative things set up?
We can put in the chat, but if you can send that to the National 4-H Conference general inbox, that would be wonderful.
And Annie, that would only be if they're not attending the service activity. So if you have legislative visits set up, that's wonderful. We encourage it. It's great, but we don't need to know that. But if you will be missing community service, then we do have a general inbox. Annie, can you go back to that while I go through the questions? It was on the previous slide with the contact information. So people can let us know so we account for buses and other things appropriately. Perfect. There's the general inbox. What time is the flag raising at USDA headquarters on Tuesday?
It is at 9 a.m.
Perfect. All right.
I have a question.
Yes.
So what about tribal IDs? Is that if some of our students do not have a state ID? Would that be allowable?
Does that have a picture on it?
Yes, they do.
So many of the federal agencies have just requested that their picture ID.
All right, thank you. I remember last year, I believe that's all we needed. But thank you.
I've had youth from the tribal communities in DC before, and the tribal IDs have worked fine.
Perfect. If there's unique situations around the IDs, why don't you email the this is a great conversation, but there may be some other uniquenesses. Please feel free to email that general inbox because we know where the youth, which roundtables they're part of and which federal agency, and we can work to identify methods that might work as well. So just to let you know. So Annie, there's a question, if our state delegation isn't selected to attend the congressional breakfast, will there be a hotel breakfast provided?
Yes.
Oh, Susan already responded. Thank you, Susan. I was trying to keep up on them, but they kept pouring in. Wonderful, great questions. How long is the Wednesday breakfast?
It'll be from 7 till 8 a.m.
And Annie, do you have an estimated time when they'll know about the congressional breakfast, if they will be attending or not?
We are going to work to get that information as soon as possible. We're working with council right now. I believe that they do not have all the members of Congress confirmed yet, but they have been invited. So we will alert those members that are confirmed. We'll alert those delegations.
All right, there is a question about mini fridges. Susan, are mini fridges available at all hotels, or should people call their specific hotel to figure out if they have what they need?
Shannon, this is Jed. I'll answer that one. There at the Residence Inn, there are many kitchens in the room, so they have refrigerators. At the Courtyard, I'm not sure, but I'll get an answer on that.
And Jed, at the Hyatt, they have small coolers in each room, but they are not refrigerators. They are small coolers that are under the counter and would hold soft drinks or something like that.
All right.
This is Akeelia. The Courtyard does have a mini fridge.
Perfect. Team approach to answering all of your questions. Wonderful. Will the chaperone or point of contact know which roundtable their delegates are selected for?
Yes, so all collegiate facilitators, when they notify the young person, will be CCing the chaperones that are assigned to that delegation. So you will be made aware of who, what roundtables each member of your delegation is assigned to, because you will be on the communications.
Perfect. That's why I'm handling the questions, because everyone else knows the answers. For those staying at the extra hotels, so Susan and Jed, do they pick the buses up at the Hyatt, or they're sleeping wherever they're sleeping at?
They will pick them up at the Hyatt. That's the center point. When you're talking about going to roundtables, tours, things of that nature, they will meet at the Hyatt.
Great. So registrations at the Hyatt and bus pickups at the Hyatt, and meals are at the Hyatt. How many pins should we bring? Great question.
There are 293 young people registered for conference. If you also want to include our collegiate facilitators who are college students and our youth leadership team, the number is around 319. So I would say less than 350. We're 3 to 350.
And then how do we know what community service were selected for our delegation? When will that information be disseminated?
So we're ready to send that information right away. What we were trying to figure out is what delegations will not be attending, because that wasn't clear to us. So that's why we're asking, if you're not planning on attending community service, to email the general inbox so we can remove you. But if you wrote yes and you put choices on the sheet, you will get that information very soon.
Okay. So that information will be communicated. Another question about dress attire. If a young person doesn't own a suit, should they go buy one for the event? The answer would be pending any institutional policies that you have, it is not expected that young people buy specific attire to attend the event. In fact, after observing last year, there wasn't one event where all young people are wearing suits and ties or suits of some sort. So hopefully that answers your question. All right, the location of the breakfast on Wednesday. Yanni?
You mean the congressional breakfast? If it's at the Hyatt, it'll be the same place that meals are served every day during conference activities. If your delegation is selected for the congressional breakfast because your member of Congress will be there, you'll get that in an email that currently is not available.
Okay. And then I'm going to answer the more general ones in the interest of time and come back to the specific ones because I do have them copied down. We can always follow up. So if a delegation will be visiting Capitol Hill instead of attending community service, do we attend the flag raising at the USDA Witten building? I would like to chime in there. We certainly hope that you do. In fact, from the evaluations, that was the inaugural event last year. In fact, from the evaluations of young people, it was one of the highlights of their experience. Clearly the roundtables took #1, but the flag raising was #2. We hope they don't miss that wonderful experience to see the flag that they're so proud of raised above the Witten building. Does the CNMI need to provide a flag for the procession? Our flag was not represented on the stage last year. We know exactly which flags weren't on the stage last year. we heard from all of you. So Annie, take it away.
We have all 50 flags in the 6 territories, so we have all 56 flags in our possession. The Ohio flag is currently at the dry cleaner, but we have all of them and our flag stand has been rebuilt. So we will have your territory flag.
Will we get specific time for events so we can stay up to date on the time?
We can have that in the digital schedule that will be provided.
I have a question about the flags. Can we bring our tribal flags?
Yes, you may, and highly encouraged. And we actually asked our Office of Tribal Relations if we could borrow the flags from them, and they gave us recommendations to reach out to you directly. So yes.
Okay, Standing Rock will be bringing a flag.
That's
Thank you.
wonderful.
Thank you so much.
The Kudurai can bring a flag.
Wonderful.
So can the Navajo Nation.
Thank you. We had the flag stands rebuilt from, the last 100 years, however long they've been in existence, and there's extra places to put all the flags. So please do bring your flag. Okay, so there was a question about the congressional breakfast, and you do not need to invite your congressman, or woman. The National 4-H Council is handling and working on all of that. So once we know who will be in attendance, that's when we will reach out. Okay. The teens want to know, what color are the t-shirts? Annie, what color are the delegate t-shirts?
They're great.
There you go.
They're gray?
On my mute button.
Are they dark gray, light gray, Susan? Do you have any idea about the gray color?
They're whatever gray Annie asked for, and I can't remember. I'm sorry.
The youth leadership team picked the shirt color, just to clarify, and they picked black or gray, and it sounds like we've ordered gray, so gray it is.
Yeah, there's also, I knew what color gray. See, I've been around 4-H too long. I know all these things that are going to come up, all the questions. Are the shirts long sleeve or short sleeve, Annie?
They're long sleeve.
Perfect, Susan. All right, there will be a mobile app to stay up to date with all things during National 4-H Conference, so wanted to articulate that. Who do we let know if accommodations have changed? Please, the accommodation that you're talking about, please let Susan Stewart and Associates know. If you need that contact information, it's again in the delegate handbook. If you start there and there's things that Annie and our DY4H team need to know, she will make sure that we know. And then, so another question about the congressional breakfast. So yes, once Annie knows from National 4-H Council which congressional members will be there, then they'll reach out to your delegation so that they can attend and confirm that you're able to attend. Exactly. So National 4-H Conference is working through all those details. All right. How early is too early to leave on Wednesday?
There is not a too early. You can leave at 5 a.m. and we have many people who do that.
Thank you, Susan.
Sure.
And are there any other questions that I might have been missing? There was a question about an ID. Again, Annie, for homeschool communities who may not have a school ID, do you have any more guidance around the ID? And if they don't have one with a photo, maybe that's something we can work through with the federal agency, like I mentioned. But do you have any other things to talk about regarding the ID?
Shannon, I do have one ask. This is Jed.
Yeah.
If we could ask one person from each group delegation to let me know when they are arriving, like when their arrival time is at the airport, that will help the hotels prepare for them. Their flight information would be wonderful.
Okay, there's some friendly tips around IDs there. Again, if you're having a problem with getting a picture ID, please just follow up with the general National 4-H Conference inbox, and we can look up the young person and where they would be, which federal agency they would be entering, and work through that on a case-by-case basis. So it should not be a barrier to attending. We will work through that. All right, did I miss any questions? And if so, feel free to take yourself on mute and get that answered.
Shannon, I have a question because I've had a lot of people attend the gala or gala, however you say it, at National Congress. So are folks getting dressed up in prom-like attire for the closing assembly and then dressing for the dance? Like, how fancy are they looking?
Go ahead, Annie.
So we can go into a little more details about the closing assembly. So the closing assembly will be seated dinner, so round tables, where the delegates will sit with their roundtable group. They will, there'll be opening remarks by NIFA, our NIFA director. Then there'll be dinner, and then there will be a certificate ceremony, which we're currently working on. So all roundtable groups will be invited up on stage, where every youth participant will receive a certificate. And so that is that program. So youth delegates will be coming up on stage. And then that event will end, and then they'll have time to go back to their room to change, to put on what the YLT, the youth leadership team, have called party attire. And that's up for interpretation.
Thank you. It sounds like business wear is good for the closing ceremony, and then their party wear for later. Thank you.
And there was one more question, Annie, as I went through, made sure we got them all. One about the resume. Should it be a paper copy or a digital copy, or is there a recommendation there?
The recommendation would be to bring a paper copy. Or if they have it on their phone, or an electronic device, I'm sure they could show it to the federal officials who are there as well.
All right, anything else I might have missed? All right, well, I wanted to close this out and say thank you so much for attending. We, again, are very excited about some of the new features of conference, and also very excited about our historical features of National 4-H Conference, and all of your attendance and making this the best experience for all of our 4-Hers. Again, if you have any questions, you have my contact information in the delegate handbook. You can obviously find me on the website. Annie, our point of contact, is our national 4-H program leader, and then Susan and Jed are handling all the logistics. But if you're not sure who to email and you go to that general email box, we will make sure it gets to the right person. We appreciate all the questions. They were wonderful. And with that, we will let you know when the recording is available, and we'll send it out to all of you. Look forward to seeing you on April 14th.
Great job, team.